Yeah.
Okay, so greetings and warm welcome to the second gathering of Asia Pacific Biopesticides Community of Practice. And I'm Darshika Senadira from APAARI. So we are delighted to see such a distinguished group of participants from the industry, academia, government, NGOs, and policy sector who have joined us from the various parts of the world today. So, first and foremost, I would like to extend a special welcome to Professor Lindsay Folvey, Chair of APAARI and Commissioner for International Agricultural Research, representing the Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research from Australia. We are honored to have you with us for the introductory session. We are also privileged to have with us an esteemed panel of technical speakers today. So, Dr. Nagesh Mandadi from ICAR India and Dr. Denis Nolo from ICGEB South Africa, Dr. Adriana Castaneda from the Manius Foundation. So before we proceed, allow me to cover a few housekeeping items. So we encourage your active participation during the discussion. Please use the raise hand feature for your comments and questions. And also please use the chat box for your valuable comments and suggestions. So let me give you a quick recap for the last session. APAARI successfully implemented the project entitled Asia Pesticide Residue Mitigation through the promotion of biopesticides and enhancement of trade opportunities from 2020 to 2023 with various collaborative parties. The project benefited 8 countries regarding by generating new maximum residue data and enhancing the knowledge regarding the biopesticide production and also regulatory harmonization. So it was funded by the Standard and Trade Development Facility. So to ensure the sustainability of the project, the Asia Pacific Biopesticide Community was launched last month through a community of practice like this and focusing on the promotion of biopesticides and enhancement of trade opportunities. So this is the second Asia Pacific Biopesticides community of practice, and there will be monthly gatherings to share knowledge as well as collective learning. So once again, welcome all to the Asia Pacific Biopesticide Committee of Practice. And with that briefing, I would like to invite Professor Lindsay Folvey to provide his insights to the introductory session. So Professor Lindsay, over to you, please.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction, which is very helpful to me. Thank you. I am not going to give a lecture. I'm simply going to welcome everybody and thank you for including me in this community of practice meeting so that I can understand more of this project. I think it's particularly interesting from two perspectives. One is about the biopesticides, of course, and the way that we can utilize that to reduce the impact on the environment and human health of some of the more chemical pesticides that are being used. But the second thing is this community of practice I see and ACR sees as a step forward for the region working together to establish a sound regulatory system and to implement that with the farmers, and by using that to increase trade access within the region and also for other exports. This is the way that we see the future operating, with more cooperation between countries so that we can learn from each other, but also contribute where there is some specific expertise. So I'm very pleased to see this big range of expertise here today, and I look forward to learning something from today's meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Lindsay, and thank you, Darshika. So, friends, today's sessions will be moderated by me and Dr. Denis, who is a group leader of Biopesticide and International Center of Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology in Cape Town in South Africa. And we have 3 speakers, all renowned in their field of work. First is Dr. Nagesh, who will be speaking for linking academia, industry, and policymakers with an example of advancing entomopathogenic nematode technology in commercial application, a success story, which will be a kind of a research link with the applications, policy, everything. And then we will have a glimpse of what is going on with Dennis, who is a co-moderator with me in SADC countries, South Africa Development Community countries, who are about to finish a project by August, September this year, in the same way what APAARI has done in Asia. And followed by that, we will have a few minutes for Dr. Adriana. She is from Agro from Colombia, Latin America, and working for Minor Use Foundation. And she will be giving a glimpse of how they have started the same project, how there has been a replicating effect of this project we did in Asia, now about to be finished in Africa and started in Latin America. So you see a clear flow of how things are moving, what's the importance of biopesticide and what is common among the projects, how we want to make it a global effort with the support of STDF, which has actually conceived such a concept from the angle of minimizing the impact of chemicals or hazardous chemical in the international trade. So STDF has been working on this for the last many years, and we tried to do one project. There had been projects before and all that, but overall we will see how biopesticides are going to be useful. So just one point, before I invite Dr. Nagesh to make his presentation, I may like to say that I may have to jump out in half an hour's time, and Dr. Dennis Nadolo will be taking up for moderating the rest of the session. And I apologize for jumping out. I have some unavoidable task. Dr. Nagesh is a principal scientist and former acting director of National Bureau of Agriculture Insect Resources of Indian Council of Agriculture Research. Dr. Nagesh, over to you. And my request is, please finish in less than 15 minutes, though we have kept 15 minutes for you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Khetrapal sir, and distinguished participants from different parts of the Asia Pacific region. I would like to go straight into the subject because the time is a constraint. Certainly, I would like to make use of that. Just a minute. So I'll share my slides. Sure. Sorry, it's suddenly taking a little more time.
If you want to be comfortable, Dr. Nagesh, shall we ask Dennis to start his presentation? Okay, fine.
I think
Okay,
now
fair.
I'm
Fine.
yeah.
Please.
At the outset, I would like to thank all the VCOP, APAARI, STDF, and ICR and NBAR for giving me this opportunity. I would like to talk on the linking the subject of academia, industry, and policymakers for advancing EPN technology in India in the last 15 years. So I would just like to touch upon the pesticide usage, where you can see internationally the insecticide, the synthetics that we are using are mostly insecticides towards and also herbicides and fungicides. But here what is important for India is that 76%, so a lot of chemical is going in. Then also, I just like to say that the three pillars that create enormous opportunities for us to realize the SDG and a biocontrol program is definitely the natural plant immunity, ecosystem services, and good agriculture practices. So that's where we are all working for VCOP here, biological control of crop pests, to mitigate the use of chemicals. And as you all already know, that the biopesticides constitute so many semiochemicals, microbials, and macrobials. Out of that, the nematode portion is 3% in the world that is being beneficial nematodes being used as biopesticides. And the trend by 2053 is that it would take over across the 2053. Biopesticide use would supersede the synthetic pesticides. The world biopesticide market currently is about 13% from the statistics that I got, could be variable. And also annual growth rate is about 5% currently. Also, in that context, just the taxonomic diversity of insect parasitic nematodes, if you see, there are 30 nematode families, out of which 7 families are considered seriously for parasitic nematodes, insect control. Out of that, again, the strainer nematid and heterorhabdated species are most important. And currently, internationally, we have about 120 strainer nematids reported, and about 30 heterorhabdated. This is not a latest picture, but 2016 it ends, but 2016 later I'm talking about. Biodiversity is one thing that is very important for us to capitalize. And what is so special about the EPN is to become the biopesticide is no doubt the broad host range, quick knockdown, short life cycle, and persistence in the soil for a longer time on repeated applications. Then it has got the host searching ability, and also it has got the compatibility and synergistic activity with other IPM components, and it's amenable to in vitro mass production formulation shelf life, where we have the commercial production viable, that can be made viable. Then also we also have the genetic improvement and genetic transformation amenability, and also it's not it is many of the countries are little liberal regulation activities of nematodes as biopesticides. This is the plus points. Then it's almost spread over the world over. And in India, we have already repeated 16 species, and we have barcoded few of them, and 4 new species have been reported. But the EPN initiative in India starts I've dated it from 1997, but much before. These are the research institutes and the important scientists who have contributed immensely to this subject. But importantly, I would like to say there were 2 formulations, one from IARI, Indian Agriculture Research Institute, the gel formulation. For a while it was viable, but later it got phased out. Then the second formulation that we developed at Project Directorate, erstwhile Project Directorate of Biological Control, now the National Bureau. 90s commercial company called Ecomax had introduced a soil commando and other formulation of EPN, which could not sustain at that point of time because of lack of awareness among farmers and the motivation to use them, and also the product stability. It was an aqueous formulation, so the shelf life was very poor. In that context, I would just like to say the contributions of NBIR over a period of time, that the academia, what academia from NBIR and few other institutes, we have surveyed and gone up to the technology transfer level in the last 15 years. And here in the industry part, the scale up, the scale up has gone once we have we have given to the extent of 10 to 12 tons per month per unit. And also market development got expanded to 22 states. And some of them are trying for trade, national and international, by exporting the formulation. And policy, yes, we got one patent, that is IPO office, we got supported from IPO and National Biodiversity Authority for access and benefit sharing. Then supportive to many of the, I will be showing that many of the startup companies were given financial aid. Then the regulatory system, yes, we have the CIB and RC, which we'll be talking about, the registration, biosafety and biosecurity. And ministry is promoting, Ministry of Agriculture, federal government is promoting organic farming and minimum MRL levels in a big way. In that context, it becomes very important for us to go forward. What was required for the EPN requirement is a stable product in the market. So what we have given the unique selling proposition is that we have evolved a wettable powder formulation which has the shelf life of 10 to 12 months. And also we have which got the IP protection in Indian condition. This is Indian patent granted. And also we also have the production system. 25, see, most of the production system is taking place in India and many other underdeveloped countries on in vivo insect the larvae like Galeria melanella or Tenebrio molitor or Coursera cephalonica. In our case, we have used Galeria melanella, and we got 20 to 50,000 nematodes, larvae per day production, us to get about 2 tons wettable formulation per cycle. And also, apart from this, the wettable powder formulation that we have evolved has now got 8 label claims of 8 major crops and 10 major pests, which I'll be just discussing. And I would just like to make a comparison. Internationally and nationally also, many formulations have been tried: aqueous sponge, alginate gel, cadaver granules, and wettable dispersible granules. But if you see the shelf life, most of them could not cross more than 8 months. But also the carrying capacity of the formulation, how much gram of can it can take. So because the bulk item, it has to be reduced to when we go to the field, the amount of formulation should be actually minimal to carry the maximum load of the active ingredient. So we could go up to 1 lakh per gram in case of wettable powder formulation. And also ease of application was much better, transportation, and it was all done at normal temperature and pressure. There was no special requirements. Other formulations do require. So that's about that. So I would like to just show you, this is the powder formulation which we have packed, and these are different formulations. And these are some of the companies that we have given the technologies. And also these are the market available trade name product names that we have in India now. Then the status of over the period, you can see here production of formulation has gone up to 2,000 tons. It is almost reaching 2,000 tons by different companies. And the area under APN formulation has gone more than 35,000 hectares by 2023. So area under different crops. Sugarcane is the major, and other crops: cardamom, arecanut, groundnut, brinjal, and minor other crops, and banana and guava, where soil insect pests are like white grub and grubs, and root grubs more important, and termites. There we are using. And these are the trade. You have the products available, and this is the distribution in different states of India. Maharashtra and Karnataka lead and in the production. And but the estimated demand is 24,000 metric tons as per our calculation. So it's a huge market that is available. Then the course of technology, if you see, we have given it to 28 institutions, and out of that, 6 university organizations have taken, 16 startup companies, 6 big firms have taken, and both the university and startup companies have received considerably the financial aid from the government. Then the outreach to market. In university, it is more direct, and other companies are outreach is through their own network. Then the outreach to farmers, if you see, they also in the case of big farmers and startups have got some limitations. They could not reach their products in some of the cases, but this is the revenue generated for the institute through licensing of our technology, and we could get back some money for our own research purposes. That's the way it has gone. And these are some of the insect pests that seriously that we have. This is the sugar cane where we successfully got the EPN working. And this is fall army worm, the powder in the walls at the time of 15 to 20 days of its emergence has given fall army worm. And this is the arecanut white grub problem. And this is the problem on with ash weevil on brinjal. And this is the Silas formicarius, that is our sweet potato weevil. This also got excellent control. And this is the lawns where we have a turf grass sword webworm problem, and this has been effectively controlled. And this is one on cardamom. Cardamom, and the other one is mustard sawfly. These two we could recommend very convenient, very effectively for the control. This wettable powder formulation, and this is banding of the tree, especially all worm in Pongamia defoliates completely the tree. So when it is migrating upwards, there is a infection. Both if you are able to give the treatment to this wettable powder formulation to the base of the tree banding, it has helped. And also we also have one important thing, the compatibility with other microbes like Metarhizium and Bavaria bassiana. There's a synergistic effect. And this is the impact of EPN and pesticides on soil ecosystems, where we have seen microarthropods using chemicals as control, imidacloprid, chloropyrifos, and heterorhabditis indica, the nematode, and untreated. So you can clearly see microarthropod population was not affected by heterorhabditis, and the chemicals have reduced. The same case with the earthworms in our experiments. And the market analysis now currently shows about 5,000 hectares is available for 2 seasons. Then 18 to 20 pests are there. And also number of crops are increasing, more than 14 of them. And we require 25,000 tons for our this one. And the regulatory framework, if you see, Australia, US, and India have taken an example. Australia is more stringent and more objective in their regulatory measures. USA is also following certain specific regulations, but they're little liberal on certain things. In case of India, we have 2 regulatory systems, Insecticide Act, under which the CIB and RCH board is working, and the state regulations also do work, but the protocols are similar, and adherence to this is also similar, except that the US has given a general exemption under 40 code, federal regulations 152.25, where EPN biopesticides not subject to full EPA registration, and also notification process. Companies may need to notify the EPA, but they need not be strictly going through the process. But similar to India, but in US, this liberal little bit of relaxation has taken place, and but at the same time, there the state level need not follow that, but it can be variable again. So whereas in India, the regulatory process is more at the federal system, and states have more for the business.
Dr. Nagesh, please wind up. Huh? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Last slide.
Okay.
So the new challenges that we have is for the trade is that biodiversity, native versus exotic. Biopesticide we consider, or we call them under different heads. The risk assessment after registration, and the IP rights. How do we transfer the IP rights among the countries? and quality and label claims and harmonization of multiple legislation. Sir, thank you very much. I think that presentation, I had
Thank
to
you.
hurry it up. Sorry for that.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
much,
you.
Dr. Nagesh. Thanks a lot for this excellent presentation of how from research we go to industry, to the policies and the commercial application in the long run. Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you,
will
sir.
have question answers after all the presentations are over.
Yes, sir.
So let me have the pleasure of inviting Dr. Dennis Ndolo from ICGB South Africa, who will be moderating the session after his presentation. Dennis, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ravi. Yeah, thanks for inviting me to this community of practice. I'd like to share my screen, but I think Dr. Nagesh needs to.
Yeah.
Dr. Nagesh, please
Right, sir.
unshare here.
Yes, sir. I'm doing
Stop
that.
share. Okay.
Just a minute, sir.
Yes. So as Dr. Nagesh does that, as Ravi has mentioned, my name
Yes.
is
Sorry. Thank you.
Dennis. Oh, no, that's okay. All right, let me just share my screen quickly. Okay. Is that visible?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, my name is Dennis Ndolo. I have 10 minutes, and during which I will take us through the project that we are running in the SADC region. The project is one also on promoting trade through harnessing the potential of biopesticides. It's a project that is funded by the Standards and Trade Development Facility. APAARI is one of our partners. We have many other partners, USDA, the IR4 project, AgAlign Global, the South African Bioproducts Organization, and the Southern Africa Pesticide Regulators Forum. So just to go into, by way of introduction, I'm sure we all know that there are certain countries where pesticide residues still pose a big challenge to exports. Some of these countries are in Africa. So what this project was meant to do was to try and harness the potential of biopesticides to reduce pesticide residue and hence enable countries to be better able to access export markets. Now, we may know that pesticide residues are generally driven by the last application. So the earlier applications of pesticides may normally not generally be much of a problem, but the applications which are made towards the end of the growing season are the ones which are normally most problematic when it comes to issues of pesticide residue in harvested produce. So what this project set out to do was to try and focus on what we would call problematic pesticide residues for late season pests. So we were focusing on trying to replace the pesticides that are used for late season pests with biopesticides, and this therefore would give the pesticide time to break down. So once you stop spraying the pesticide, it starts breaking down, but the biopesticide continues providing pest control during that period. So that was the thinking behind the setup of some of the components of this project, using chemical pesticides early in the season, and then later in the season towards harvest, we then replace those with biopesticides. Now, to do this, a number of things were necessary. In order to be able to use biopesticides even in this manner, they must be available. They must be available for growers to use. Now, many countries do not, at least in Africa, did not have regulations which were fit for purpose, regulations which were customized in such a way that they could be effectively used for registering biopesticides. Many countries were still focusing on, were still using regulations that were developed for chemical pesticides, and that does not always work very well for biopesticides. So one of the things that the project sought out to do was to look at how can we look at the guidelines in the region and ensure that they are developed in such a way that they are fit for purpose, or they can be used to effectively and efficiently get these products registered and available for growers. But not only looking at those regulations, but also harmonizing them across the region. Because when you have regulations which are aligned across various countries, then it makes it easier, for instance, for a product that's already registered in one country to be registered in another country because the requirements are the same. So we looked not only at developing guidelines for registering biopesticides, but also harmonizing them across the various countries in the region. So that is one way of enhancing access. Then, in order to use biopesticides for residue mitigation, not all pesticides are problematic in terms of residue issues. So one of the other things that the project did was to determine what are the specific residue problems. And then we then identify biopesticides that can be used to mitigate those residue problems. That's the second project objective. The third one, to be able to use biopesticides in this manner, growers need to know what is available out there. So we carried out some study at the beginning of the project, and we found that in many countries, growers do not know what products are available for them. So one of the other things that the project is doing is to provide information so that growers know what options they have. And finally, and thanks to APAARI, who has got a lot of experience in this area, many projects focus only on the technical issues, developing the guidelines, carrying out the residue studies, and so on and so forth. But the other soft skills, the other skills that are needed to be able to ensure that even the outcomes of these projects can be implemented. Soft skills like strategic thinking, teamwork, leadership, and so on and so forth. So during the course of our project, we worked very closely with APAARI to ensure that those people who were engaged in the project also developed the soft skills that were necessary to ensure that the outcomes of the project could be effectively implemented. For example, some of these things require that you work across teams, but if you're not good at teamwork, you may not be able to get good results. So functional capacity building is another aspect that we did, and APAARI played a very big role on that. Now, in the next 5 minutes, I'll just quickly go through what exactly we did. In developing the guidelines, one of the things that that was evident is that over the years, there are certain regulations that have been developed in a wide range of areas, but developing the regulations is normally the easy part, getting the regulations on paper. The difficult part is normally to domesticate them, to get countries to actually implement them. So one of the things that we did as we commenced the project was to look at the regulatory landscape in the various countries, and more specifically, what will we need to ensure that these guidelines are domesticated, so that when we're developing the harmonized guidelines, we're already thinking about what will be necessary to ensure that the guidelines can be domesticated. We then formed a technical working group, and what I just want to mention about this is that it's important in a project, a process such as this, to involve key national stakeholders in the process. So these are regulators from the countries that we're working with who played a major role in developing these guidelines, so that there's ownership of the process. On this slide, I just want to mention that there's no need to reinvent the wheel. That was our thinking, because a lot of these guidelines have been developed in other areas. So the OECD has done some work. South Africa has excellent regulations. The EAC has developed harmonized guidelines. So one of the things that we did was to ensure that we learned from the other processes. So we had meetings where we looked at these other guidelines and then determined which aspects could feed into the South Africa process. We ultimately developed the guidelines, which are due to be submitted to the SADC Secretariat in the coming months. As I said earlier, developing the regulations is the easy bit. The more difficult bit is getting the regulations to be actually implemented in the country. So one of the things that we're working on now is to work with the countries so that they can all develop implementation roadmaps, so that the guidelines eventually can actually be used in the various countries. In the next 3 minutes, I'll just quickly go through our residue mitigation studies, where we said we have to identify specific residue problems, and that is the strategy that we use. So the conventional pesticide is used earlier in the season. We use the biopesticide late in the season at around harvest time, and that ensures that you harvest crops with less pesticide residue. So one of the things that we did is that we organized a forum at which various pesticide problematic pesticide issues were provided. So that's some of the problematic pesticides that growers say that they experience. Those are the pesticides which make it difficult for them to access certain markets. But we decided to focus on two pesticide problems in avocado and in mango. The studies were done in Kenya and Tanzania. In the interest of time, I'll just quickly rush to what exactly we did. Now, one of the things that I'd like to mention is that not all pesticides are candidates for biopesticide-based pesticide residue mitigation. The only pesticides which are problematic are those which whose residue levels are still very high at harvest time. So one of the first things that we did was we carried out some studies with various pesticides to determine which one of those were good candidates for mitigation. So if there's rapid decline in pesticide residue, there's no need for mitigation. Farmers just need to apply them as, you just need to educate farmers on how best to apply them. Intermediate decline, when there's intermediate decline, how the pesticide residue declines over time. If it's intermediate, those are potential candidates for residue mitigation. But if there's very long decline, then those are the sorts of pesticides which are very good candidates. Their use should only be restricted to the earlier seasons, and then later in the season, we can then use biopesticides. How did we set up these studies? It was very simple. We have a field where we have a treatment where it's just the conventional pesticide throughout. At the end of the season, we look at the yield and we look at the pesticide residue. We have another treatment where we have the last application of the pesticide is replaced with a biopesticide. And then we look at the yield and the pesticide residue at the end of the season. So that essentially was the way the studies were set up. And then we then compared the efficacy of the biopesticide treatment, that is the one where you replace the last application of the pesticide with a biopesticide, and the one where you only have the pesticide throughout. And then we made comparisons both on yield and as well as residue levels. So we found that the biopesticide treatments, the residue levels were reduced, but as you can see from those graphics, the level of control of anthracnose, in this case for mango, was the same, both on the leaves as well as on the fruits. We, however, need to repeat these experiments, so we need a more replicates. The results are promising, but we need a few more replicates to be able to make recommendations for growers. I'm just about to finish, but one other thing I want to mention is information. So growers need to know what information is out there. We are working closely with CABI, as I'm sure APAARI is, to try and provide information to growers on what biopesticides are available in the various countries in which we're working. One other last thing that I want to say is that with biopesticides, sometimes it is difficult for growers to know under certain circumstances, situations, how do they choose a suitable product. So we came up with this sort of schematic, which is customized from the one that was developed by AR4 for chemical pesticides, and it just helps growers to determine. So we have affirmative criteria and we have negative criteria. So we have a blank worksheet that a grower can be able to use to determine what product is suitable in a given situation. So just one thing I'd like to mention is Dr. Nagesh was, for example, mentioning some positive attributes of some of the products that they have developed. So this toolkit, for example, is a very good one in our view for trying to determine if you have a range of pesticides in a given scenario, how do you then select the best one to use? That's our project website for more information. I'm sure I had to really rush through the presentation, but thank you very, very much. Yeah, thanks, Ravi.
Thank you so much, Dennis. It was an excellent overview of what is going on in SADC countries. Now I will pass on to you for moderating the session. And I'll excuse myself, and especially for inviting Adriana, who is initiating an excellent job in Latin America on the same subject. Dennis, over to you to invite Adriana.
Thank you very much.
Carry on.
Thank you very much.
Dennis, there are some questions in the chat box. I'm sure you'll be able to answer that. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ravi. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay. So I'll take off from Ravi with the moderation, and without taking any more time, Adriana, I'd like to invite you to make your presentation. I think you have 5 minutes, Adriana. Thank you.
I hope you can hear me okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Can
we
you
can,
hear me?
Adriana.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you. I'm in my cell phone. So I'm gonna present in the 5 minutes the project similar to what Ravi's implemented, and also Dennis is implementing in Africa. So this is the title: Mitigating Pesticide Residue in Latin America using Biopesticide. It's in the middle, actually, right now, in 1.5 years of implementation by AICA, also supported by USDA, Minor Use Foundation, and with the funding from the STDF. I usually present this slide because this is based on the two very successful projects from Asia and Africa. That was our inspiration, and now we started with the plant preparation grant from 21 to 22 with 12 countries. Very challenging in Latin America, and now we started to implement the actual project in 2022, and we will finish hopefully at the end of 2025. As I mentioned, 12 countries from Central America and the Caribbean, and from South America. I'm actually based in Colombia, South America. So we have 5 different outputs. As I mentioned, our inspiration were these 2 other projects. We have a little bit of different scope. We have training, one of the outputs, regulatory affairs, research, that is actually the mitigation part, and the minor use visualization and the minor use program in the region, and the extension. This project, of course, fed from the other ones, and we made a little bit of change based on what the results were. So the first output was the establishment of the Regional Excellence Center in Latin America. The first training was last year, and very successful with 10 countries. This year, we just finished, and we increased from 10 to 14 countries, and we increased from 20 people to 33 people this year. Very successful training of insecticide residue in Colombia, South America, and the National University of Colombia. So next, by Ravi's and Lisa's project, we included soft skills training that is going to be available very soon. That was organized through University of Costa Rica and North Carolina State University in soft skills. That's going to be virtual, and we're going to also have a virtual chapter in quality assurance, hopefully at the end of this year, and we will have another one in July. So it will be 2 quality assurance training. So we haven't had any advance in the regulatory affairs because we have been working with USDA in similar projects. So that advance in Central America and some areas of South America. So I'm going to talk about the output 4, that is the minor crops. And the first part was to give visibility of minor crops and the minor use foundation at national and regional level. And then at the end of the project, we will have a proposal to have a minor use program at regional and national level. So in visibilization, we had the Global Minor Use Summit just recently in February in Spain, February of this year. So that was part of the visibility. All the 12 countries attended and met there, and we presented this project and we invited them to participate. And this is part of the visualization. This is actually what I'm doing right now. It's also visualization of the Global Minor Use Foundation, of the Minor Use Foundation and the Minor Use programs. So what we have as an example are the minor use programs around the world. So there is one, as you may know, in Europe, also in the United States, the Area 4, in Canada, and the closest that we have in Latin America is the minor use program in Brazil. So what we expect to have at the end is at least a project for legislation of minor use programs in the region. Central and South America. So the final output, I'm sorry I didn't translate this part, it was also a recommendation from the experts and from the other projects, is that at the end we need to have an extension program with the results we will have. So then it's kindly offer part of what they have produced, so we can adapt it to Latin America. So at the end of the project, we will have the extension is trained in technical capacity and also in functional capacity. So as I mentioned, that will be at the end of next year. I don't know if I run a lot, but I'm finished. And thanks for your attention. These are the emails of people involved. Also Agaline, AICA, Minor Youth Foundation, and USDA. So thanks a lot. If I run a lot, just at the end you will have some time for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adriana, for that excellent overview of the great work that is happening in Latin America. I think for now we are going to go to Q&A. Okay, I'm trying to open. I can't see my. So we have some questions in the chat. Sorry, I'm unable to open my chat box. But if there are a few questions in the chat box, but you can also use the raise hand facility to if you want to ask your question. If I don't see any hands raised yet, but I'll go to the chat. Okay, so the chat, there's a question from Ms. And the question from Ms. is, what are the limitations challenging greater adoption of biopesticides in Asia-Pacific regions? The question is in two parts, but maybe let's take the first part to begin with. If there's anyone from the Asia-Pacific who can be able to give a go at that one. I can initially share some experiences from the African region. As I mentioned in my presentation, actually in Africa, one of the main challenges that have impacted the registration and adoption of biopesticides has mainly been the regulatory system. Because in many countries in Africa, regulations that are used for pesticides are the same ones that have been applied for regulating biopesticides. And you know, the sort of information that may be required for chemicals, in chemicals, you're actually regulating chemistry. Here, you're regulating biology. It's very different. So it has not worked very well for biopesticides. And so in Africa, the main push has been to try and ensure that countries have regulations that are developed based on international standards, but customized for biopesticides. So that has been one great challenge in this region. Of course, there are a few others, but I'm wondering whether there are any thoughts from the Asia region on the same. I don't see any hands up on that. I will then share some other thing from the African region, Ms. The other issue that you raise, Ms., and it's tied to the other one, is also the issue of efficacy. So one of the challenges with some and not all biopesticides is, you know, chemical pesticides give a very quick kill. So it is an easy sell for growers. So a lot of research efforts in Africa have also focused on how to ensure that biopesticides, the few where the efficacy, for example, is impacted. For example, let's talk about the virus biopesticides, for example. One of the challenges that we've had with trying to get growers to adopt viral biopesticides is the issue of UV radiation, for example. And so that you find that they have to either apply them very early in the morning or very late in the evening, which is a variation from what growers are generally accustomed to. So one of the major research projects that we have been involved in for the past, for example, is to try and see how we can develop products, or products that can be used to try and limit the amount of breakdown, say, of virus-based pesticides by UV radiation. So another possible concern with some of the biopesticides is just to ensure that there are sufficient interventions to ensure that their efficacy can also be ramped up a little bit. Ravi's Mrs. question continues. Any consideration for efficacy of biopesticides in IPM systems, specifically efficacy performance criteria for control? So what I'd like to mention, Ms., is when we developed the guidelines for Southern Africa, there's information in there, I may not have it off the top of my head, on efficacy testing of biopesticides. And I actually share the draft guidelines with you, where efficacy guidelines for various biopesticides, there's some provision on how that would be done in this region. I don't want to hog the call. So if there are any other comments on Mrs. Question, I would really appreciate. So that I'm sure we have many experts on the call. Okay. I am not seeing any hands, and so I will go on to the next. Oh, Ms., you want to make a comment?
Yes, thanks, Janice, and great to meet you again. So,
yes,
as you know that we're working on that specific area, and as you and the other presenter mentioned about the registration, the regulatory process that we have, and we understand the barrier and the challenges. So we're working on it. So, and I have made the presentation in the ICGAV conference this year regarding the efficacy, and we're still working on these things. And we share our idea with Australia, we share our idea with the OECD, the African Union, and more than happy to present the concept if people are interested for Asia Pacific, and haven't finalized yet. So it's just in a discussion process, in a development stage. We want input from other nation and other countries and other continent as well, so that we can develop a concrete guideline regarding the biopesticide, which might help and benefit the farming community, not only in Australia, but rest of the part of the world. So just to make any comments, and thanks for your explaining and very nice way of presenting things and addressing my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. And I think that's an excellent intervention, because in this community of practice, actually, we have the common purpose of trying to promote the use of biopesticides, sharing ideas amongst ourselves, and learning from one another. So I think my recommendation would be to APAARI that maybe Ms. You could make that presentation at the next community of practice meeting. So if that's okay with APAARI, maybe that's what we could do, so that we could also be able to learn from the work that you are you're doing. So I think we can take up that discussion. I'd also really, I mean, I've listened to some of your presentations before, but I would look forward to joining that call again.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you very much. Thanks for.
Okay. There's a question. Is there any other comment?
Dr. Dennis, this is Dr.
Yes.
Nagesh.
Yes.
You raised a very important point: access to information on biopesticides available.
Yes.
One is national level, individual country has got its own access to the biopesticides and information. How about the global? Globally, are we looking at advancements in the biopesticides that are available in different markets? And can we have a common platform of information, at least availability, though there may be regulatory restrictions, but availability of different information on availability and access to the biopesticides that are available in different parts of the world?
Thank you very much, Nagesh. Yeah, that's interesting, especially in light of a recent meeting that we had. So we have been working with CABI to try and get this information out there. And one of the requirements actually for information to be on the CABI portal is that we have to get permission from the regulatory authority to say that, okay, these are the products that are registered in country X. Now, one of the challenges that we have faced actually in that process is that we have products which are available in certain countries, but it seems apparent that there are countries where the regulators have no idea that you have certain products which are in their market. So we were in one country one time where the information that the regulators has is very different from the information that the growers and the growers and other stakeholders have. So I guess the key challenge there would be, I think it would be, in my view, only feasible if it could be done through the regulatory office, because those are the ones who provide information on products that have been actually registered for use. I don't know what thoughts are of the other panel members, but as you say, it's we really insist that the regulator has to provide us with the permission. But I think, as this is a community of experts, if there are any other thoughts on how best we can provide this information, I think that would be very grateful. I think Ola may want to add in something. Thanks, Nagesh. I'm not sure I answered your question very well, but yeah, that's.
Thank you very much. I'm from Bangladesh. Usually, our farmers are very tend to use chemical pesticides because of their high efficacy, and because of low efficacy, they are not interested, not very much interested to use the biopesticide. So, what will be the percentage of biopesticides that we will accept for use, and we will promote them to the farmers? What will be the efficacy percentage of the biopesticide should be, so that we can promote biopesticide to the farmers?
Okay.
You understand? Because of
Yes. I just wanted to throw this to Ms. Ms. From your experience, as you have been working a lot on efficacy testing, are you able to weigh in on that question?
Yes, thank Dennis, and thank you, Mr. Ahsanullah, for your comments and question as well. So, I mean, yeah, so we still have the same challenges in Australia as well, and we're currently working. But because as the presenter mentioned, and as you know, so there are a lot of benefits for biopesticides. So the benefits are related to the narrow range of the target species, the IPM friendly, the degradation, environment friendly, and socially acceptable, the environmental stewardship, and the other sort of things. But there are a number of challenges about biopesticide as well, and the greater adaptation of biopesticide. One is the high cost, which is relevant to the commercial production. The other factor is, which is the certain factors which influence the efficacy. And the nature of the biological process which underpin their activities, the effectiveness may limited by the speed and the persistence of the pesticidal action or insecticidal action, as well as the significance, the timing of application with respect to the targeted pest life cycle, their population dynamics. So there are a number of factors that really plays a role. So, and we are having the similar sort of challenges, and it's not like just Australia, the other OECD countries, we have the similar sort of challenge. And we're having similar sort of discussion with Canada, with US, and with other countries as well. And that's why we're working on it to develop something that what could be acceptable as the efficacy performance criteria for control so that the farmer can be benefited. And we shared this idea with the Australian farming community and the Australian regulators and the Australian farmers, and we shared these things with the African Union as well. So I'm more than happy to present and share with this community, the Asia Pacific, which is more working on the Asian region, and see what your feedback. I mean, it haven't finalized yet, but if we came to an agreement, or your input is also important, so we can take into consideration and work together so that that can be a valuable document, not only for Australia, for other countries who are having similar sort of challenges. Because we know the benefits are benefits, so we don't need to be concerned about benefits like the residue perspective and the other perspective, but thing that we need to consider is the challenges, and one of the major challenges is efficacy if you compare with synthetic pesticide. But biopesticide is not an alternative for synthetic pesticides. There's the other thing that we also need to take into consideration as well. But again, you all are the expert. I don't really spend much time, but more than happy if APAARI and this community is interested to listen our views, listen our perspective, what we are currently doing. More than happy to share and present to in front of you and see what your feedbacks are. So that pretty much from my side. Thanks, Janice. Thanks, Alsanullah.
Thank you very much, Ms. I can see we are running over time. I will also share with you, Ola, what we have developed in the SADC region with regard to efficacy testing. So I'll just share with you that by email. It's not final as well, but I'll share with you. It's a draft as well, and your comments will be highly appreciated. So I think we're already 2 minutes over time, but I just want to quickly therefore run through the questions. I want us to finish in the next 3 minutes or so. So one question is, what are the guidelines or regulations about quality control of biopesticides and against spurious biopesticides? And I think for me, this is where registration comes in, because for biopesticides to be registered, efficacy data also needs to be provided, because there are many countries, and I think this is also a discussion that maybe at one of the community of practice meetings, I may want to bring up. What is a biopesticide? Is it a registered product? Or is it any product, even one that's been developed by growers, that can be used to control a pest? Because the only way to ensure that we have quality standards is to ensure that these products go through a regulatory process. And so I've normally had these discussions about a non-registered product. Is that a biopesticide or is it not? So on the issue of quality control, I think the regulatory process would play a very critical role. That's just my thinking. Is the biopesticide chemical or natural? I think these are generally natural products. Of course, we have plant extracts as well. And there are various reasons why they're not effective under field conditions. I gave the example, for example, of viral-based biopesticides, where this UV radiation is a big problem. I don't know whether there's anyone on the team who may want to weigh in on this. But because many of these are also living organisms, so there are very many variables within the environment that can affect their performance. If there's any, in the interest of time, I'll just go to the next comment so that we finish in the next minute or so. I would like to know your comments on the impact of yield disease, MRL, how it can, where pests are very severe and don't have effective solutions or alternatives. Sorry, I'm looking at the questions. I would like you to know your comments on the impact of yield, disease incidence levels, MRL impact in conventional biopesticide strategy to mitigate MRL aspect in mangoes. Any additional comments on how it can be strategies on crop where disease are very severe. So the reason why we carry out the studies that we did on mango and avocado, just an answer to this question. Based on the infestation levels that we had at the time, the biopesticide treatment was performed as well as the conventional pesticide treatment. However, as I said in my presentation for the mangoes, to be able to make recommendations for growers, we need to repeat those experiments under different infestation levels, under different climatic conditions, before we would then be able to make conclusions. The residue mitigation strategy may not work for all pesticides, and that is why we have to carry out studies for each crop pesticide pest combination. So I think that sort of answers that question. The results look promising, but we need to repeat those before we can make recommendations. Another question is there any short-term training on biopesticides application and mass production? I think APAARI had some program. I don't know whether APAARI wants to quickly jump in there. I think the APAARI project had some training on this. APAARI, yeah, APAARI had some training program in their Asia project. So I think Ravi is not on the call anymore, but yes, they did have.
I think so. As I am,
Yeah,
as
so
for APAARI in Bangladesh.
Sorry.
As I am working for APAARI in Bangladesh, so I know yes, there are some. I know there might have some program on training on biopesticides.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, so we can just reach out to APAARI if there's interest in that space, and they should be able to provide that information. Sorry, we are running out of time, and let me just run to the next one. There's a question about whether the results could be used to transfer results to the private sector or growers, and for which crop pest combinations. So far, we have only worked on 2 pests. We have worked on the false codling moth and mango anthracnose. As I said, we still need to repeat those results, so we still may not be able to make suggestions to growers until we repeat those. Can biopesticides be applied for fungal diseases? Yes, like the one we use, neem, for anthracnose. So the answer to that is yes. I think the questions of efficacy have been addressed. We will share some information on some of the proposals we have in the guidelines that we have developed. EPN technology, I think, Nagesh, there's a question about EPN technology. One of the major challenges is stability in formulation, and this needs to be seriously considered. I don't know, do you have any comments on that, Nagesh?
Yes, there are some good trials that are going on, and there are some isolates which are metrism and soplier. That's the question, what you're saying?
Yes, so the question is saying one of the challenges is stability in formulation. How do you deal with that challenges?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I saw the next question. Okay, but the formulation stability is the one that we tried with vegetable powder formulation, which has given us up to 10 to 12 months. But now we are again trying on different other formulations because the viability of the nematode is not like the way bacterium and fungi are. So their behavior is different. Some we are trying out, and many other laboratories are also trying out for the stability of the formulation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's actually.
Yeah, thank you. So the other question is studies that have been taken up to mitigate by hybrid mode of application of biopesticides and chemicals. Yeah, I think those studies need to be conducted. So for example, in the studies that we're doing with the virus, cryptogran, which is a viral pesticide, can be used alternately with methoxyphenazide. And the methoxyphenazide doesn't actually affect the biopesticide. So that's also a potential way of mitigating MRLs. So in the answer to that question, that is also a possibility. We have not carried out that study so far in detail, but we know that cryptogran can be used alternately with methoxyphenazide, and it works quite well. I think I'm looking at the questions and I don't see any other question, and we have taken 10 minutes of all your time. And so I think I will leave it at that point. We will share the presentations. Okay, so I will just leave my email address also. I see there may be questions directed to me, and maybe if those could be shared either to APAARI or to me, then I'll be able to address them, because in the interest of time, we may not be able to go through them at this in this meeting. And I'd just like to thank you all very much. I'm just going back to the program to see what then I'll hand it over back to APAARI. But I'd like to thank you very much. I'm so sorry that the time was a bit tight, but I think that shows the level of interest in this space. And I really look forward to more of these discussions. I'm especially hoping that we can be able to hear from Mies, who has done some great work in Australia. We had him in a meeting in Cape Town recently, and I think what he shared would be very nice to share with the wider community of practice. Thank you very much to all of you. Thanks so much. And I'd like to hand it back to APAARI. Thank you very much.
So yeah, Dr. Dennis, thank you very much for carrying out this session. It was very insightful. I hope you everyone got very successful and success stories and knowledge, new knowledge, and sharing knowledge, and all those things are happening in this community of practice. So as we conclude today's event, and I would like to extend our gratitude to all the participants, those who have participated today for the various parts of the world. And first, Dr. Lindsay, I have to provide a special thank to him, our chair of APAARI, and also a special thank to our esteemed speakers, Dr. Nagesh, Dr. Danis, and Dr. Adriana. And your expertise and experience truly invaluable to the session, and it was very interesting actually. So finally, we extend our thanks to all the participants, and your engagement and contributions have been vital to the success of the today event. So I think all of you have no comments regarding this, and this community of practice will be conducted in next month also with a new topic. We will discuss about it. So thank you all for being here, and we will look forward to your continuous support and collaboration for future events too. So have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you, Darshika, and all the
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
everyone.
Good information. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you, Dennis. Bye bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.